Dillman, who graduated from Stevens College's fashion department in 2009. Just a few years after graduating, Katie followed her passion for adventure and education, purchasing a one-way ticket to Thailand, where she became a teacher in local schools. In 2014, Katie took her love for learning and service to the next level by founding Make Our Day, an education nonprofit dedicated to creating meaningful opportunities for students often excluded from traditional schools. She went on to earn a master's in education, and today she continues to inspire through her work, writing EAL, English as an Additional Language, curriculum, leading camps and classes for several hundred students each year, and raising scholarships that support more than 50 students annually. Katie is also a yoga instructor, public speaker, children's book author, and teen hiking guide, showing us all that a life lived with curiosity, creativity, and service can take many forms. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Katie Dillman.
Hello, good morning. Swadika. My name is Catherine Dillman, or I'm better known as Teacher Katie to my little munchkin. I'm a Stevens graduate and, as she said, founder of an education nonprofit called Make Our Day. And I have not had the chance to come back to Columbia, and I believe Monica said 10 years. So I'm very happy to be here in a place where I have so many wonderful memories and lifelong friends. And thanks to the events that have been set up for me, I already have new friends here. I see my costume designer. So it was so great to be able to get to meet some of you and just feel the joy of being back at Stevens. Of course, all my best memories from Stevens were happening outside the classroom. I'm sure that hasn't changed much, and I believe there are no classes this afternoon, so enjoy. Also, if anyone has rollerblades, something I like to do that was not cool when I was here and probably still isn't cool is go to Stevens Lake and rollerblade. So this is my shameless plug to borrow your rollerblades if anyone here has them. I became a teacher myself in Phuket, Thailand in 2012. I was 25 at the time, so I was a few years out from being a student, but I was still close enough to being a student to remember that most kids are not thinking about class during class. They're thinking about their hobbies, for me, rollerblading and foster cats, their crush, their friends, so I didn't really take it personally when all they wanted to talk about during class was what are we gonna get up to outside of class. I think that's pretty standard for students, and I don't think it's necessarily something that's going to change or need to change, so I didn't try to fight it. I made a deal with them. I said, look, I get it. You guys want to party, I want to party. If you can do fractions and grammar for me during the day, I will make it my mission to make sure you get to do these things you want to do outside of class. Pinky promise. No takesies, backsies. So that's how Make Our Day started. They took me up on that offer pretty hardcore. And it was just a way to give my students something to look forward to after school and on the weekends, and it didn't hurt that for me it really improved their behavior and focus during school because they were actually getting to live out some of these ideas that they had about their perfect day. Those after school programs quickly grew into birthday parties, summer camps, field trips, and we were spending as much time together outside of school as during school, and I guess that's how they wanted it, and that was fine with me too. And it was really the joy of my life to be included in what a child sees as their perfect day. Somehow Frozen was always in the vision for that perfect day as well. And my first generation of students is now the same age as you. So I think your parents might back me up when I say that you held us hostage with that Frozen soundtrack for a decade. And we have not let it go. And now that Monica brought it up, I also would like to call out, we don't talk about Bruno and Baby Shark. You're not off the hook for those two either. But Make Our Day went on like that for a couple of years. Friends and family, Stevens alum, would send small donations to Thailand. We weren't doing like super elaborate activities, but we were doing really fun camps and classes with what we had. Life was hard because the situations of my students were inherently difficult, but the highs definitely matched the lows. We sang Frozen, we built piñatas, we wrote stories about Taco Cat, and as our trust and love for one another grew, I even got them to do fractions, math and grammar. But those munchkins, they did the one thing I asked them not to do, and they grew up. As they headed towards 6th grade, it became pretty clear that some of my munchkins, particularly my tween girls, 10, 11, 12, the party was going to be over way too soon. After 6th grade, or even 4th grade, many would not return to school. They would be working in dangerous, often illegal industries, or caretaking full-time. And even those who wanted to continue with their education and their family was able to agree to that, they were very likely to be turned away by the public school system due to their ethnicity or migrant status. I found out that some of the 12-year-old girls' families were getting them IDs to say they were 18, and I did not have to ask why. And if you Google Bangla Road in Thailand, you won't have to ask either. And around this same time, there was talk of two of my favorite, yes, I have favorites, two of my favorite students going to one of the Koreas to work in a hotel. And that was kind of a breaking point for me. Some teachers had to say no chewing gum in the classroom, and I said, no one from my class is going to one of the Koreas without a passport. We need a new plan. So as my students grew, I had to expand what Make Our Day could offer them beyond like those camps and classes that we were doing after school. I had to know their families. I had to know the reality of life in the labor camps or group homes that many of them lived in, because the new plan was going to take all of us. And today, Make Our Day has a full elementary curriculum that can be taught outside of the traditional classroom in multiple languages. Starry Taco Cat is pictured in your program, on the back of your program there. He also attended Stevens. An in-person GED program, scholarships, teen leadership, and teen job programs. So it's expanded a bit from our initial Frozen sing-alongs and birthday parties. Make Our Day helps stateless students get real IDs, real is important there, and passports. We talked to parents in person about what would need to happen to make it possible for them to be able to keep their children in school. We understand that children need to contribute financially, even from a very young age. So we partner with businesses and just individuals to find safe, fair-paying jobs for young people. The idea being that by working and attending school, if the parents agree, just let us try this, let us stay in school and do this safe job, that they will be able to pull their families out of poverty in a single generation. And I'm happy to say it's working. 5 of my Make Our Day alum are now teachers themselves. Our first, Sal, signed her contract to be a kindergarten teacher when she was 12. She's 16 now with a team of teachers under her, and they're doing an incredible job. Last year they had 150 students in their kindergarten, and it's just a testament to my students and the community and the leadership opportunities that we've created that I don't know a lot of 16-year-olds that can manage 150 kindergartners. So, if we create the opportunities, they are getting, taking them and running with it. 2 of my girls went from being sponsored students to being the first paid employees of Make Our Day. We're a volunteer-run organization, but they work remotely while they're still in school. They translate our curriculum, they do accounting, and they're proving to the next generation that, hey, look, just stick with the plan and we're gonna figure something out. Dozens more Make Our Day alum are working safe jobs with a steady paycheck and no need to hide from immigration. I can't walk into a mall or hotel in Phuket without hearing from behind the desk, "Teacher Katie!" And that is now the new joy of my life. And yeah, we still get to party and sing. More Taylor Swift now than Frozen, but that's a welcome change for me. Congrats, Taylor. But I do have a bone to pick with Taylor Swift because she recently embarrassed me in front of the Munchkins. They wanted to know what era of Taylor Swift I listened to when I was in school, and I said the first one. And they said, "Oh, Fearless era." I said, "No, the first one, Taylor Swift." They said, "That's not an era." And I said, "Well, it was my era. So let's ask Google." And they shoved that phone right up in my face. I said, "Hey, Google, was Taylor Swift's self-titled album part of the Eras tour?" Immediately, robot voice, "No." Taylor Swift's self-titled debut album was not part of the official set list for the Eras tour, and they lost their minds laughing. They thought that was so funny. That immediate no just really did it for them. So your era is so old, you're not an era. I love these kids, but they're gonna get their karma because I plan on raising their kids through Make Our Day. And when that happens, I'm gonna form an alliance with their children. And together, we will make fun of everything they loved in 2025. We're doing it. These same students that tease me for being old have been through several years of Make Our Day leadership. And when we aren't teasing one another, what we can accomplish together is pretty incredible. They help me put on an annual English camp every year that has grown to be able to host hundreds of migrant students. They illustrated our first book. And each year on my birthday, not only do we throw this amazing taco-themed party with homemade piñatas, but they help me raise the sponsorships for the following year, so people coming up behind them can be sponsored. And handing over your scholarship to the next generation is a huge honor, and even better than money is having that actual person for the student to look up to who received it from them. Our biggest party came 2 years ago when my first generation of Make Our Day girls started receiving acceptance letters to university. They're your age now, they're 18, 19, 20. It was a long, hard road, but as we speak, Ying and Nina are getting back to their dorms at Thammasat State University in Bangkok. The first women in their lineage and in Make Our Day to attend college. That these women were academically capable of attending a good college was not a surprise to me. I've had them as students since they were 12. But that we managed to raise the money for tests, applications, in-person interviews in Bangkok, tuition assistance, that surprised all of us. You could say it made our day, but what it really did was bring hope at a time that it was really needed, to students, to volunteers, to donors, to parents, to community members. We needed that win. And most of that money to sponsor Ying and Nina came from Stevens alum. I was humbled by their generosity towards young women, but I was not surprised. Acting on what you say you believe in is integrity, and Stevens graduates have that. Stevens women hold the door open for the women coming up behind them. And when Ying and Nina moved away on their own to attend college against all odds, they held the door open for everyone else in Make Our Day. We now have 9 students in the in-person Make Our Day GED program hoping to follow in their footsteps, and many more seeking sponsors to begin the GED program. Ying and Nina went first, and that took a lot of courage. Some of you will know from personal experience that it's not always fun to go first. You don't necessarily feel like being brave or courageous. To be first means to be different in a way that's uncomfortable or uncertain. People talk, they doubt you, they might write you off completely out of jealousy or just wanting to distance themselves from you because you're now different from them in this very tangible way. And while in my eyes, Ying and Nina are heroes and leaders for my next generation of students, I know that they struggle and they would not have minded a bit if someone else went first. They feel the weight of what it took to get them to this point, and they have a lot of fear around making choices regarding with school or work, because they feel pressure that every decision made at this age and this stage is going to affect them long into the future. And if you're carrying a similar fear coming into Stevens or getting ready to leave Stevens, I consider you my students now, so I'll tell you what I told them. And it's that you don't need to make meaning of everything you're experiencing while you are experiencing it, because you probably can't. Not everything you do with your time at Stevens or in those early years after needs to serve a clear purpose to your future. Our culture leads young people to believe that an interesting, meaningful, and even enviable life is like a staircase, and every choice you make is going to take you up or down to the basement, bottom of the staircase. Actually, at the hotel, I did not know there was an elevator, and I spent a lot of time in that staircase yesterday and today. But we know from living in this culture that success is always up and to the right, and that's what it looks like. Good grades, good college, good job, good quality of life, good global citizen, philanthropist, whatever. And that's a path, for sure. And I know that that path is available to every one of you that's in here, because every Stevens student I have ever met is capable of taking those stairs 2 at a time. And if the stairs are your path, then there is community support for you here, alumni support for you here, people thinking, actually forward thinking about what work of the future looks like. That was the path I planned to take myself when I left Stevens. But I had to find out on my own if the stairs were really for me. And Ying, Nina, and you guys will all have to do that for yourself as well. I do remember feeling that every choice in my early 20s was going to have huge consequences for my future. I feel very differently about that now. And I'll tell you why. Because I started gardening, and if you're wondering, yes, there's a direct line to COVID hobbies here. With the garden, we also have the bread, the dyes, the microflower farm, the homeschool co-op, anything you saw on TikTok. We've got it going on due to COVID hobbies. But I've spent the last 4 summers here in Missouri gardening because I'm building a beautiful garden campus in Aurora, Missouri for the next phase of my garden. So I've already got the curriculum, I've already got our project-based learning and our translation stuff sorted out. Now we're building this campus for our future. And I currently hold summer classes there for Missouri students, but down the road the campus will be a place where my Italian Burmese students can come and spend the summer, and where Missouri students can train to go teach Make Our Day programs abroad in the countries that we are connected with schools. As I built my garden alongside my Missouri students, I have come to realize that my life since leaving Stevens has looked a lot more like a compost pile than a staircase. You know what a compost pile is? If you aren't familiar with what a compost pile is, it's the section of the garden where all the scraps get thrown, avocado rinds, banana peels, eggshells, leaves, sticks, whatever we use to dye our fabrics with. It turns into free fertilizer. But people are rarely clear what you can put in the compost, despite vast amounts of picture signage. But things end up in there that never should have been in there in the first place. It looks like a mess, and sometimes it smells gross. Maybe your 20s a little bit. after a matter of seasons, that metabolizes into exactly what you need. And it's the life force of the garden. And one of my teen girls who helped me build this compost pile 4 years ago, you can tell she was not really into this idea 4 years ago, but this year, she's, fertilizing our vegetables, and she's like, can we sell this? We should sell this. It's really good. I'm like, it is really good, despite what maybe it looked like in its various stages for the past 4 years. But every single thing that went into that compost pile mattered. Yet there was no single piece, good or bad, up or down, that mattered enough to change its eventual direction. My garden, along with my students, have taught me that there is another path to building an interesting, meaningful, and even enviable life. And it's to build a compost pile. Throw every experience that comes your way at Stevens and those wonderful, uncertain early years after college onto the pile of your life and let it feed you later. My college major was one of those things that got thrown onto the pile. At Stevens, I didn't major in education, I majored in fashion. And if you're looking at life like a staircase, you might say that spending 4 years on that major was a waste. And you do not have to, because many people have said it and will continue to say it. But I don't feel that way. And in some ways, fashion did lead me to starting Wayfair Day. Because right here, at an assembly that was mandatory for fashion majors, I learned about human trafficking and its prevalence within the garment industry. Now, a newsflash, I'm aware this is not a newsflash in 2025. And I'm sure that the fashion majors here today would not be caught dead doing a Shein haul, but the cognitive dissonance of the mid-2000s was pretty wild. And this is not to suggest negligence on the part of the fashion faculty, because we would come to class, we would learn about intellectual property, we would look at pictures, like side-by-side pictures of Fashion Week and the knockoff that Forever 21 was able to get up online like that. The only thing is that instead of being offended by that or boycotting Forever 21, we were like straight out of class to go buy it. But we were also wearing concealer as lipstick at that point, so a few things were amiss. And in hindsight, it makes a lot more sense to me why that assembly was mandatory. Good call, Monica. But anyway, the assembly was about a book. It was called Not for Sale. The author was the one who presented it. He talked about trafficked labor, debt labor, and stateless children and the industries exploiting them. Again, at the time, online shopping and fast fashion was kind of new, and most Americans weren't looking at the global supply chain in the way that we should have been. So that assembly was eye-opening. But it's very important for me to emphasize at this point in the story that in that moment, knowing that information did almost nothing to change my behavior. You can't always make meaning out of the things you're experiencing while you're experiencing them. I feel like every founder story I've ever heard hinges on this one point where, like, life-defining moment that changed everything for that person. And I just wonder how true some of those stories really are. Because I just can't relate, because let's rewind the tape to 2008. If my life were a staircase and that moment changed everything, then I would have gone out of the assembly and dropped out of fashion school. I mean, what choice do you have at that point? I would join the Peace Corps, become a human rights lawyer, sew up all my Forever 21 tube tops, the blankets for your foster cats. I didn't do any of that. I stayed in fashion, I became a buyer after graduation, and I think you already know I continued to shop at Forever 21 until it ceased to exist. But that assembly and the information it provided did not alter the course of my life in any measurable way. What it did was throw some scraps on my compost pile. One scrap was the story of Crew Nam a main character in Not for Sale. She worked with stateless children from the Thai Myanmar border who had no legal rights and were highly vulnerable to trafficking. And she didn't start with a plan, but she saw these young girls in bars and she couldn't take it, so she started taking them. She walked into the bars and one by one took a girl by the hand and walked her right out the front door. Over time, that turned into dozens and then hundreds of students, and it was a dangerous thing to do, but it was the right thing to do, and I loved that. Some of my Stevens classmates must have known I would love that because after the assembly, my roommate said to me, "You would do that." You would go get those girls. I would, and later I did. I now know that Kru in Kru Nam, spelled K-R-U, means teacher in Thai. And I myself have been Kru for 13 years now. For 13 years, I have walked with stateless students into the administrative offices of Thai public schools and asked them to honor their rights to receive a public education. The Munchkins nearly always get turned away. It's heartbreaking and even radicalizing for some, but we keep coming back. As in many places, what the law says and what actually happens are starkly different. So any progress made integrating migrant students into Thai public schools is made one at a time, one student at a time, one advocate at a time. And I knew that from Kru Nam's story long before I knew it from personal experience. This is all to say that no knowledge gained or relationship formed during your time here at Stevens is ever wasted. Some things don't mean anything to you in the moment because they're just compost. I can't tell you what will come of your time here at Stevens and in those early years after graduation, if your path is going to be neat and clear like a staircase, or if it's going to be messy but alive like compost. My point today is that it doesn't matter. If you throw every experience you have here onto the pile of your life, it will end up feeding you later. Thank you, Kapuna Kanakriyan.